Good afternoon, everyone. I think we are going to get started today. So thank you so much for taking the time this afternoon to join us during your lunch hour. We're excited to introduce you all to a tool that we think is really valuable to help sell energy efficiency projects. It's called EPIC, which stands for Energy Performance Calculator. I think we can advance to the next slide, give you an overview of what we're going to discuss today during lunchtime, and kind of a roadmap of how we see this going. So we'll start with some quick introductions, and then we will give you all an overview of the Connecticut Green Bank if you're not familiar with us. A quick introduction into CPACE financing, which is our financing program for energy efficiency and renewable energy projects for commercial properties. And then we will hand it off to our partners at SRS to give you an overview of the EPIC platform, and then go into some next steps and leave you with some contact information. So just to give you an idea of kind of how we plan this to roll out is you're here today for an introductory webinar on EPIC. And then there will be a call to action after the webinar. We'd like to know if you are interested in participating in a complimentary subscription period of the program. If you're interested and you think that this is a good fit for your company and that it'll indeed help you sell projects, you will receive a complimentary one-year subscription. We're not sure when it's going to start yet, but it will be a year long that you'll have access to the EPIC platform, and then you'll have an opportunity to continue using the platform after the year-long subscription ends. So I will introduce myself. My name is Christina Sitso. I'm an associate on the financing programs team at the Connecticut Green Bank, and I'll pass it along to my colleague Peter, who's on the line as well.
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here with y'all. And I'm Peter. I work on market engagement for our commercial products. So I'm out talking to customers and partners and a lot of you to help get folks to the point where they understand our programs and how to use them. And I'll pass it on to Brian.
Good afternoon. Likewise, thank you for making the time to attend the program today and learn a little bit more about the opportunity with EPIC. My name is Brian McCarter. I'm the CEO of Sustainable Real Estate Solutions, or SRS for short. And we have been involved with the Connecticut PACE program back to its genesis around 2012, 2013, providing technical assistance services to the Green Bank, and we also perform those PACE administrative services in a number of states around the country, and developed this EPIC tool, which you'll learn more about here in a few moments, in direct response to the needs of contractors and project developers to both estimate the energy savings of energy efficiency and renewable energy projects and help to make the business case for investment in these types of projects, specifically for high efficiency equipment, and to integrate the assumptions of financing into their proposals. I hand it back to you, Christina.
Great, thanks, Brian. And just a bit of housekeeping before we get started. Everyone right now is muted, but feel free to drop any questions you have in the chat throughout the webinar, and we can take some time to answer them. We can also take you off mute if you'd like to come off mute and have some discussion towards the end. And this will be recorded, so we can send you a copy of the recording after the webinar. All right, so to provide an overview of the Connecticut Green Bank, the Green Bank is the nation's first green bank. We were established by the legislature back in 2011 with the main mission of accelerating the deployment of clean energy in Connecticut. So we do that by taking limited public dollars to attract private investment in clean energy. To date, we've deployed about $2.5 billion in the Connecticut's clean energy economy, which is something we're very proud of, but we definitely could not have reached that achievement without the partnership of our contractors that we work with. So it's very important to us to make sure that we're providing you with tools and resources to help leverage our products and help to create more business for you all. And moving on to the next slide. So the Green Bank takes those limited public dollars to administer various programs on behalf of the state all across different types of sectors. So we have programs for residential homeowners that some of you may work with, and then solutions for commercial properties as well, CPACE being one of those that fall under our building solutions vertical, which we'll talk more about today. And we also have investment solutions for projects that kind of fall outside of our suite of products, and then solutions for communities as well. So why work with us? We know how important it is for us to work with you all. So why work with the Green Bank and partner with us? We feel as though the Green Bank is seen as a trusted partner in the marketplace. We're a quasi-state agency. So we feel as though building owners see us as a trusted entity that they can work with. Contractors who use our resources and become registered under our programs, we feel as though they get to enjoy the credibility that comes along with working with us as well. And then we feel as though the support that we offer helps to provide contractors with confidence to sell our tools and our programs. So from trainings to marketing materials to technical support like the Epic platform, we feel as though this helps to provide you all with the resources that you need to confidently sell more projects. We host networking events often. We have an event coming up actually on the 29th of this month. It's an open house at our office in Hartford. You're all certainly invited and we'd love to see you there. But we feel like, getting out into the market with you all and working together helps us all to succeed in the long run. So we'll certainly send around some registration information after the webinar, so hope to see you all there. And we feel as though working with us helps to create more business. We think our financing solutions create value for building owners of all types and fill gaps in the market that maybe other solutions can't support. And partnering with the Green Bank, we see will open up new markets and expand what you can offer to your existing customers as well. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Peter to give you all an overview of CPACE financing and the types of projects and sizes of projects that we've worked on to date.
Thank you, Christina, and thank you, everyone. I'm going to keep this as brief as I can because we really want to get into the main part of the presentation with Brian from SRS. But if you could go to the next slide, please. So CPACE, as Christina alluded to, is what we want it to be as a way for you all to sell projects, but at a kind of very practical level. It is financing for commercial properties that's secured at fixed interest at longer terms, up to 25 years. And the reason why we're able to offer, for example, a 20-year fixed rate loan is because it's secured with a senior tax assessment placed on the property. So similar to the way a building might have a water assessment or a sewer assessment on a property, excuse me. So it's a very flexible tool. That assessment stays with the property, even if a property owner wants to sell the property, which still allows these longer outlooks and longer investments. So it's a great way to cover the capital costs for some of these clean energy projects. And as you can see now in the bottom left, that little blue star shape that also tells us that now we can finance EV charging and infrastructure EV charging infrastructure and resilience. So the program's also even expanding beyond just things like HVAC and solar. So this is sort of CPACE in a nutshell. And then if you please go to the next slide, we wanted to talk a little bit about the production of the program over time. And when you all are looking at this, I hope you feel a great sense of, accomplishment, because most of our projects come from you. This is a really contractor-driven program. I know Elise and Christina and others have done a ton of work over the years to work with you all and understand how to respond to your needs. But just looking at the production of the program, you can see we've closed hundreds of projects. We are finding the average project size about in the $600,000 range. But one of the interesting things we're noticing is also that just about under 70%, if you look at the pie chart on the lower left corner, about 70% of these projects are renewables, mainly solar PV. And we understand that we want to make sure that we are providing folks who are also doing energy efficiency projects the tools to sell those projects. And because as you can also see on the bottom right-hand side, CPACE really is applicable to such a range of building types and customer types. And so one of the things that CPACE requires, and that a lot of you might know this already, we have something called the savings to investment ratio, which is basically that we have to demonstrate that there are more savings than cost over the lifetime of a measure we're underwriting. So if a heat pump costs, I'm making up numbers, but if it costs $200,000, then we need to make sure that we have $201,000 of savings over the useful life of that heat pump. So looking at it that way, we know that there's an upfront need to calculate energy savings, to show that value to a customer, and to also have a feeling for how it will fit into our program. And that's why we're really excited to hear from SRS about the EPIC tool. So I'm going to kick it over to Brian and look forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Peter. And as Peter just described, the technical standards as part of the CPACE program does require this savings to investment ratio greater than 1. And as he was just alluding to, the S in that equation equates to the energy savings that the proposed measures will, those savings will accrue over their lifetime. And that ratio is over the all-in cost. So that would be the cost of the equipment, your labor to install, and the financing costs across the term of the financing. And one of the reasons, frankly, that the pie chart shows a smaller slice in the camp of energy efficiency, not that the opportunity doesn't exist, it certainly does with the recurring replacement need of this equipment by building owners. It's just that the tools haven't been prevalent, I'd say as prevalent, let's say, as in the solar PV area. One thing I noticed in the registration list was many of you do provide both energy efficiency and solar PV services to your clients, which is good to see. And as you would know from that experience, tools like PV Watts or other commercially available solar PV savings or generation estimation tools are prevalent in the market. And there hasn't really been an equivalent over the years for energy efficiency, and that has been a limiting factor. And in short, that's what we're seeking to do with the EPIC tool, is to allow contractors with relatively few or minimal data inputs to integrate the estimated savings into their proposals, and as I noted earlier, help to make the business case for a building owner to invest in high efficiency. As you know, high efficiency equipment comes with a price premium, and that in the mind of the building owner needs to be a justified cost relative to their view of the return on investment. Could you advance to the next slide, Rudy? And therein lies the what we want to share here this afternoon is the EPIC tool, which will enable you to perform those estimated energy savings, integrate the assumptions of CPACE financing into a proposal, calculate that SIR in real time, and that may, as you'll see here in a moment, that may require adjusting the term or other variables, and Epic provides a tool to turn those dials quite quickly. The other thing that is common for us to hear from HVAC contractors or energy efficiency and solar PV project developers, there's often back and forth with the building owner on the comparison of standard or say code minimum equipment options versus high efficiency. And as I was just noting, how do the economics differ between those investment options? And Epic is an effective tool to help with that, as well as the combination of energy efficiency and solar PV improvements in one consolidated proposal, again, integrating financing assumptions as well. So in short, Epic is a tool that's used not only here in Connecticut, but across the country by HVAC contracting industry, project developers, ESCOs, and solar PV firms to integrate those assumptions. In short, we see it as a tool to drive higher ticket, higher margin projects, which of course from the project developer side is a welcome outcome. But in addition to that, it's a everyone wins scenario because, right, maybe not all, but in most projects in our experience, the return on investment for higher efficiency, high efficiency equipment is justified if the building owner were to be able to see that business case set of analytics. And so with that, I will shift to my screen here. And you should be seeing now Epic in the upper left-hand corner. Just technology check on that. Yep,
that's
okay.
right.
And we'll get underway with the Epic demo. Okay, so couple points to make here. Epic is a cloud-based tool. Each user has their own username and password, and when they log into the tool, they will first show up on this screen, which we refer to as the My Properties page, and that serves as an archive of any past projects that a user would have entered into their instance of Epic. I want to take you through the workflow, let's say, of a typical project opportunity. Let's say you have an inquiry by a building owner to create a proposal and how Epic may support and add value to that process. So first I'm going to hit this Add Property button in the upper right-hand corner, and that will bring us into the Epic app. I'm going to choose to enter a property, which you see as you'd be accustomed to with any of your navigational devices. Epic is integrated with Google mapping functionality, so when you begin to put an address in, it'll call up the candidate list of sites. This was the property that I wanted to select, this White Plains Road in Trumbull, Connecticut. That must be a medical office. One of the utilities of Epic, let's say you get that inquiry from a client, you haven't yet visited the site. Let's say it's a the driver of the project is HVAC equipment end of life. If you haven't been there, there's some utility in just getting a quick look-see at the configuration of the rooftop units and so forth. And once you're happy that Epic has geocoded the location of the property as it is in the real world, you can hit save, and then that property will be added to the top of your My Properties page queue, as these properties are listed by the last entry or the last modification date. So there's our 888 White Plains Road in Trumbull. And directing your attention to the far right column under the Action column header, a little plug icon is where the user clicks to create their first scenario. And I noted earlier about the notion of comparing, let's say, a standard or minimally compliant code equipment scenario versus high efficiency. High efficiency could be like for like, or electrification options for that matter. And so what I wanted to share with you is at this juncture, we've created a property in Epic. Now we're going to create a scenario. Also, I should note, Epic can support buildings that have either a single use, as in the case that I'm going to use here, which is medical office, or mixed use. So let's say you're in a downtown area, central business district area. You have a building that may be ground floor retail and office space, or maybe multifamily space above. You could select mixed use and model a project in that vein as well. I'm going to keep it simple for our purposes and select single use. And then that brings us into the Epic tool. If you note down the left-hand margin here, there are a number of different tabs, starting with building information, energy consumption, energy improvements, pre versus post, funding scenarios, which is where we'll put in the assumptions of PACE financing in a sec. Each of these tabs houses a different set of analytics and calculations, and I'll share some of those relevant ones with you as we go. Starting here on the building information tab, I noted earlier that Epic only requires a few data inputs, and from a building characteristic perspective, they are year of construction of the building, or the building's age, its size and square footage, and the type of building. This building was built in 1986. It's about 51,000 square feet, 120 to be precise. And it's a medical office. While I select that, I hit the drop-down menu, and just to share with you, as you glance down this list, Epic is designed to support a pretty broad section of public and private building types, and I'll just scan that so you can get a sense of it. Education, K-12 and college, university, schools, food sales, food service, restaurant categories, health clubs and gyms, healthcare, meaning both inpatient, outpatient, and long-term or assisted living type facilities. Lodging is covered, multifamily apartments, office, and various public buildings, as well as retail, and finally warehouse and storage. Our building is a outpatient clinic or medical office, so I'm going to select that. And then looking at the upper right of this screen, you'll see the last building characteristic that Epic asked the user to confirm is how the building is currently heated and cooled. And based on its location, property type, and size, Epic will make a smart assumption, meaning in this case that it's a natural gas-fired space heating system and is cooled by rooftop air conditioning units, as opposed to, say, a larger building that may have a chiller plant. And based on our glancing at that rooftop, I'm going to say that's probably a pretty good assumption. So we'll leave those as is, but just know if you're in a building that, let's say, is electric resistance heated, you can change these based on your configuration. And then the lower right here is where you select the types of improvements that you'd like to build out a scenario for. And you see there's three general categories here. First is like-for-like replacements. So again, let's say the driver of a project, which would be common for mechanical contractors, would be HVAC equipment reaching end of life. And if you wanted to do a like-for-like space heating and air conditioning replacement, you would select those two items. As you see, Epic also supports domestic hot water heating systems as well. If you wanted to model out a scenario for electrification, meaning converting from the natural gas-fired space heating system to either standard heat pumps or high-efficiency heat pumps, variable refrigerant flow, Epic does support those options as well. And those of you that are involved in comprehensive or multi-measure type project development, LED lighting, whole building energy management systems. I noted many of you on the call do get involved with efficiency and solar. Solar PV is supported, as well as roofing. For purposes of our scenario, we'll assume this is a HVAC equipment upgrade, so I'm going to hit submit. And then once I do that, I want to share with you a couple underlying assumptions and how EPIC sets up for making its estimated energy savings estimates based on those selections. And I've advanced now to the second tab, the energy consumption tab, and you'll note EPIC has made an estimate at the whole building level of the building's electricity and natural gas consumption on an annual basis. And how EPIC does that is EPIC has lots of underlying databases that drive these calculations and assumptions. I think some of you are likely familiar with the Department of Energy's CBEX data set, and we do a lot of data analytics on that, as well as in our experience over a decade doing technical reviews on PACE projects. We've looked at well over 10,000 projects at this juncture, so we have a lot of in-house data sets where we look at things like the median energy use intensity of similar buildings in the same geographic area that'd be subject to the same weather. Which is to say, if you haven't yet collected utility bill data from the building owner and don't know the exact consumption numbers, EPIC can be used as a tool to estimate that consumption. And again, that's based on the median energy use intensity of peer buildings in the same geographic area. So that's option one, which is the easy option. Option two, I'm going to look at the key assumptions quickly and glance down to that tab. In the event that you have collected actual utility bill data from the client, you can see here are those default assumptions based on peer buildings. You could always change this. So let's say you look at the actual bills and it was 948,000 kWh consumption over the prior 12-month period. And I'll use a round number here for natural gas CCFs per year as well, just so we see how that flows through. So this points out a key design feature of EPIC, whereby it's a tool that's designed that even if you're in the most preliminary stages of scenario development and you haven't yet had the luxury to do a site walkthrough or engage with the building owner and collect much data, you can still create a first scenario with the intention, most likely, of updating some of these base assumptions as that data becomes available to you and you engage, further with that client. Another set of the key assumptions are the unit cost for electricity and natural gas. You see EPIC has included some assumptions for those. That represents another key data set where EPIC is connected to the U.S. Energy Information Administration's Commercial Building Consumption Survey. Some of you may be familiar with their work in that regard, where EIA does a recurring survey to determine the average rates for electricity and natural gas in all 50 states, actually. And that's the source of this. So this would represent average utility rates in this area. Right? Of course, if you collect the actual bill data, they may be on a slightly different tier schedule or what have you. And again, those values can be updated. The other consideration is whether you want to consider demand analytics in your calculations. EPIC will make an initial assumption you see here of $15 per kW demand schedule for electricity. But again, that can be something that you would choose to update if you had data available to you. And if I do make any of those updates to the default values in the key assumptions tab, I would reset those values by clicking reset and then update the baseline. And I use those round numbers just so it could quickly demonstrate how that flows through. So now let's assume we have a baseline set of values that's based on the building owner sharing those utility bills. And then the next step that Epic does, and it does it in real time, as you see, is it weather normalizes those values, which is to say Epic is connected to about 1,200 weather stations around the country. And each of those weather stations would typically have 20 to 30 years of heating degree day and cooling degree day data associated with them. Based on the subject building's address, Epic identifies the closest weather station, analyzes that data, essentially looking at an average weather year scenario, and uses that so that we have a representative annual baseline value. And then based on the type of building, again, we're in the medical office category, Epic has associated with it a end use profile for every one of those property types that we looked at on the property type drop-down menu. These could be also adjusted by users. Those are typically users that have more energy auditing type experience. But the key point I would want to note here relative to our scenario where we selected space cooling and space heating is, as you see, the estimate for this property based on its size, property type, and location is the cooling, space cooling would consume about 9% of the annual kWh, and we'll use that value as the basis to create the estimated savings for the upgraded space cooling system. And likewise, we'll use the end use values of space heating, which represents about 77% of the natural gas usage in the building, as the basis for the space heating estimates. And I'll advance to that now. We'll go to the third tab, which is the Energy Improvements tab. And recall we had selected both space heating and space cooling as our upgrades. You see a bunch of calculations on this screen, and they first appear in this grayed out format. And that's designed to draw the user's attention to these enable buttons. And the concept is the user will click into those. So assume you're in the context of preparing a proposal. There's a few metrics here that you will review and likely update to align with your proposed equipment, both capacity, efficiency, and pricing. And those key metrics are as follows. So let's say your proposed new equipment is, this is the rooftop air conditioning category, is a 13.5 EER. You can select EER or IER depending on your preference. And that new equipment efficiency is compared, the delta between that and the existing equipment's efficiency. And how Epic is calculating that is that's where Epic uses the age of the building, and we look at the age of the building and some other underlying databases of the ASHRAE 90.1 standard relative to that equipment type that would have been in effect at that point in time of the assumed installation of the existing equipment, and adding an average annual performance degradation factor since its installation allows us to calculate a estimated efficiency of the current equipment. Again, if you did a site visit and perhaps that efficiency rating of the current equipment is on the nameplate of the equipment, then you could override this, of course. But this delta between new and old equipment efficiency allows Epic to calculate the percent savings, and then that percent savings would be applied back to the space cooling annual electricity usage, and that's what allows the calculation of the annual kWh unit savings, and then we convert that to dollars using that dollar per kWh that we just looked at a moment ago in the key assumptions. So that's the core process to estimate savings. Epic will also estimate the capacity of the air conditioning system on the basis of the property characteristics that we looked at earlier, meaning we now know we have about a 51,000 square foot medical office building in Trumbull, Connecticut. We've looked at most likely 20 to 30 years of cooling degree day data, and therefore can calculate the cooling need of the building. And that's how EPIC makes this initial capacity sizing estimation in tonnage. Again, in the context of your specific proposal, you may change that value, saying, yep, we're going to propose 120 tons or whatever, 130 tons, depending on your analysis. EPIC also calculates, as you see, an estimate of the installed cost of equipment. And we do that on the basis of past project data. In our data set, again, we have a role in PACE project administration to do third-party technical reviews, and part of that is to review savings and actual proposed cost of equipment. And then we normalize those costs. In this category, this is driven by a cost per ton for rooftop air conditioning units, and that's what's driving that. But again, let's say just to use round numbers, let's say you're going to propose $230,500 for this replacement equipment. And then the other potential input here is utility rebate or incentive programs. So let's say this is a Eversource territory here in Connecticut, high efficiency rooftop unit, maybe I'll just make an estimate, something like 10 to 15%, maybe not unusual, do something like $28,000, right, be around 12% or so. So I can add any of those. I know many of you are involved with Eversource utility program incentive programs, and you likely would know those values to insert into your proposal. And then, as you see, once I hit submit, then EPIC calculations come from that grayed out background to the green background. You have an estimate of the first year kWh savings, the demand impact. You have an installed cost, which is the gross cost less any of that incentive dollars. First year dollar savings, which takes the unit savings and converts it into dollars based on those unit costs that we noted earlier. And the lifetime savings, which as Peter initially stated in his comments, is an important component of the savings to investment ratio calculation. Lifetime savings assumes that those savings will persist across the rated estimated useful life, in this case 15 years, including an average annual price escalation factor of 3%. And that simple payback calculation is first year dollar savings over the installed cost. And the savings to investment ratio, as we noted earlier, is the lifetime savings over the installed cost, right? And you begin to see these numbers paying up in the upper right with an installed cost, lifetime savings, and you end up with a net gain or a net cost. The space heating system, I'll toggle that on quickly. It's pretty much equivalent methodology, only you're comparing now the new space heating's combustion efficiency as compared to the existing equipment. And again, the delta between that two will allow the calculation of the percent savings, which would be applied to the space heating natural gas consumption. The capacity is estimated on a similar fashion, right, that we would know based on the building characteristics, the heating need of the building, and can calculate that in BTUH. Again, that can be customized as you get to your actual equipment proposal stage. And similarly with the net installed cost, let's say you were going to propose $129,000 and you assumed a 10 to 15%-ish incentive, that'd be something like $16,000. I submit that, and now I have my two components of my project, right? The space heating and space cooling. You see the combined impacts from a net install cost, about a $315,000 net installed cost, with an estimated savings of $445,000 or $130,000 net gain over the lifetime. Not too bad of an investment view, and an SIR of 1.4. Then I come down to that assumes a self-funded investment, but I'm sure you run into scenarios whereby the building owner doesn't have sufficient capital budget, right, to self-fund the project. That's where this benefit of PACE financing comes front and center. And by clicking the PACE finance slider there, you can see, as Peter was alluding to earlier, one of the great benefits of PACE financing is that the lender, Connecticut Green Bank, can provide 100% of the project cost. So in many, not all, but in many cases, a building owner can transact without any out-of-pocket cost. As you see here, now what this tool allows is for us to dial in the interest rate and the term of financing that still meets the program's requirement for a savings to investment ratio greater than 1. And some of you may know, Connecticut Green Bank has a published set of interest rates that are variable relative to the term in years and whether a project is under or over $500,000. So with that in mind, we can do a little quick modeling. Let's assume here we had a 15-year term. That would be, looking at the chart, would be a 5% interest rate. And as you see, that's marginally still in the net cost category, which means it's not quite achieving the savings investment ratio greater than 1. Let's say I reduce that term to 13 years, which is a 4.9% interest rate. Let's see if that does it. And there you see. So now we have that cost of financing over the 13-year term, right? Financing $315,000 over the 13-year term at an interest rate of 4.9% means a interest cost of $111,000 over the term, but we're still ending up with a savings to investment ratio greater than 1, which is to say the lifetime savings outweighs the installed cost plus the finance costs by $19,000, right? And then below, which many building owners would want to better understand, is the projected cash flows. So in other words, the owner contribution or out-of-pocket expense, good news for a building owner, is 0, right? So they write a check for 0 up front. Here are the project savings estimates over the life of the equipment, whereby the space heating system is rated for 22 years. The rooftop air conditioning units are 15 years. But just looking at, say, the first 5 years, you see an average of approximately, say, $20,000 in utility bill savings. The loan payments are at $32,000. So the net annual impact to the building over say, the first 5 years would be something in the order of $11,000, per year. And then over the life of the equipment, they yield a positive $19,000. So that is, in short, the concept of EPIC, right? Allowing you to put your inputs for, I'm focusing on HVAC here at the moment, but the relative inputs of your HVAC equipment, right? Efficiency, capacity, and cost. Putting in, then you have the ability to quickly toggle any assumptions around PACE financing to lead where you want to go. And then you can save scenarios, as you mentioned. Let's say we call this high efficiency HVAC with PACE. We can save that scenario. And now we have a few options. I can share that scenario with my contacts. So in this program, one of the things that we envision is you could create your contacts within your network. That could be colleagues that you collaborate with on these types of projects. That could be Christina or Peter at the Connecticut Green Bank, right, to help and assist with any questions. You might want to share the scenario with them. You may want to share the scenario with technical assistance staff here at SRS, right, for any questions. In any case, that allows for a collaboration tool. What happens there is once you click a contact, they would receive an email with a link embedded that they click and they come right into this scenario within Epic, right? And then you have the ability that everybody's on the same page. You also can download different types of reports. We have a multi-page, what I like to refer to as the business case report. We also have a one-page summary report, and you can make a determination, depending on how far along you are with the conversation with that particular building owner prospect, or maybe frankly, the level of sophistication of the prospect, right? Whether they would be more inclined just to look at a one-page high-level summary or something more like what I'm going to show here, which is a multi-page business case. You can upload your logo into Epic. Takes about 30 seconds, and custom brand this according to your firm. And this report is generally used as an addendum to a contractor's proposal that provides the following information. Here's the building characteristic information that you loaded in the scenario. Here's the installed cost, the savings estimate, and the net gain. This chart shows a vision to the building owner of the annual estimated impact to their operating income and how that savings would sort of hit that bottom line. The report shows a summary of the measures that you are proposing, including the itemized contribution to cost and savings, a few of the high-level key financial metrics, and here's our assumptions on the PACE financing, right? That the client was going to finance 100% or $315,000 over a 13-year term at a 4.9% interest rate. And then that chart that we looked at that shows the red indicates the loan payments, blue indicates the energy savings, and the yellow indicates the annual net cash flow. And that table of cash flows is included in that report as well. Again, a financially savvy building owner or maybe their CFO typically likes to review this in the form of investment due diligence. So generally speaking, gives them the numbers that they're looking for. And then the report goes on to show anticipating questions of the building owner on how these estimates were formed. It shares the key assumptions, the unit cost of electricity and natural gas that you assumed, the baseline values, current consumption of the building, assumptions on how the building currently uses its energy, and the values that you used for space heating and space cooling to create the energy estimates. There's a few bullets about the methodology of the savings estimates. There's a comparison of their building's performance pre-improvements and post-improvements to their local peer buildings. We use the Department of Energy's building performance database as the basis for the peer building comparisons. And then there's a few more sections that summarize each of the measures that you're proposing, in our case, air conditioning and space heating, and its contribution to unit savings and dollar savings, and then the roll-up of the total project. To the extent you're working with a client that may have a sustainability program or ESG programs, and therefore is very mindful of the impact that these improvements are estimated to have on their greenhouse gas emissions reduction, those calculations are provided. And several footnotes that would support the calculations for those that are inclined to dig in a little further. And with that, I'm going to show one other thing, and then we'll wrap up for any questions that you would like to pose. I noted earlier about the notion of comparing standard equipment investment level with high efficiency. And in the interest of time, prior to our call, I had created several scenarios, as you see here. So I have here a high efficiency HVAC with PACE financing versus standard. And you can see just briefly how that high level of that comparison, right? The difference in net installed cost between standard and high efficiency, the difference in interest cost, the different terms are involved there, and lifetime savings and net gain, which is to say, if you look at the high efficiency line, its lifetime savings is over $100,000 more than the standard equipment, and its net gain is $5,000 more, which is to say, if I had a long-term orientation as the building owner at this property, the numbers would suggest that the high efficiency equipment, despite the fact that it has, about a $10,000 price premium net of the incentives, is the better, high efficiency is the better investment. And this tool, this is another report that can, as you can see, can be run real time out of Epic, that's referred to as the scenario comparison, allows a user to select the base case. In our scenario, that was the standard HVAC with PACE financing, and compare that to an alternate case, which was our high efficiency. And this one pager is often used by contractors to help facilitate these conversations with building owners on the difference in these investments. And I direct your attention to the far right column, which shows the percentage difference comparing the alternate to the standard. And I'd call it a few things. So from a total savings perspective, you see the high efficiency equipment is generating about an 18% greater energy unit savings, dropping down to the cost, but of course it costs more, right? And I assume the cost would be somewhere between 15 and 20% greater for high efficiency equipment. I assumed from an incentive point of view that there would be no utility incentive available for standard, code compliant equipment, and I assumed there'd be a 10 to 15% incentive available for high efficiency. So that leads to a net installed cost, and you see the difference now is down to 3% if you factor in the utility rebates. And then that leads to first year lifetime savings that favors the high efficiency equipment, as you see, in the ballpark of 25%. Right? So high efficiency is yielding about a 25% greater dollar savings impact. And that net gain prior to interest cost is, over its lifetime, is 160% more favorable with high efficiency, right? If you factor in the financing or the interest cost, and you see what we had to do here is the high efficiency equipment supported a 13-year term financing, but because there's less dollar savings on the lesser efficient equipment, that project could only support a 5-year term financing, right? So you have about a 45% more favorable net gain after considering the interest cost. So
Brian,
in sum,
yeah,
yes,
Peter. Peter, we just need to give Christina like a minute or two to wrap up. So I just wanted to flag time.
I'm sorry. Okay. I think that's suitable. To the extent the customer, again, is motivated by greenhouse gas reductions, you see the high efficiency equipment is about a 20% greater advantage. So with that, I'll stop there and we ask for any questions you may have, or let Christina make some final comments.
Perfect. Thank you, Brian. That was great. So yeah, as I mentioned previously, the Green Bank sees the Epic platform as a valuable tool to help sell efficiency projects and incorporate financing into your proposals as well, as Brian went over. So we are going to be offering a complimentary year-long subscription to the platform, and you're all invited to participate in that subscription. Here's just a few benefits of why you might want to participate. You'll have the ability to integrate financing, as we mentioned, and then you'll also be able to receive technical support from Brian and the folks at SRS throughout the duration of the trial, and then support from the CPACE team here at the Green Bank on incorporating financing. So if you're interested in participating, let us know. We can get you set up with a login to the platform. You can certainly let us know you're interested in the chat, or we will be in touch with you after the webinar as well. If you have any questions or you'd like to discuss participating further, we're also more than happy to set up one-on-one conversations with anyone after the platform, after the webinar, excuse me. But if anyone has any questions in the last minute that we have here, just feel free to raise your hand and we can take you off mute or pop it in the chat. And if not, we can call it for today. But like I said, we will certainly be in touch with you all individually via email, and we'll circulate a recorded copy of the presentation as well.
All righty.
Yeah, looks like we're all set. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. It was great to have you, and thank you, Brian, for joining as well and giving that great demonstration.
Yep. Thank you all for making the time. Yep. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye now.